Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time we're going to be talking about another Metroid Prime Remaster rumor. Now full disclaimer, I'm not saying this rumor is coming from a credible place as the title may suggest. I'm actually just talking about this rumor and questioning its believability, if it makes sense, and talking about a particular leaker that I actually feel like isn't very consistent. But I think it's a good opportunity to have this conversation, and I do think there are some things about it that do make sense. So that's why we're talking about it today. And basically the rumor is that a Metroid Prime Remaster may be coming with some sort of new special switch, perhaps by the end of the fiscal year, which would be March of 2023. And if this happens, this would also sort of fit that need for a game to come out March of 2023, because we've always seen some sort of game come out in March every year during the Switch era. So who is this leaker that I definitely share a lot of doubt for? The leaker is Marco Maro, and they don't have a good track record in my opinion, but there are some things said here, as I said, that are compelling, so we're going to be talking about that today. Now before we jump into things, let me very briefly mention my social media. You may see a few different things here on screen. Check that all out. It's linked in the description below. And of course, if you like what you're seeing here, you can subscribe or perhaps consider joining as a member. So here we have Marco Maro, a leaker, quote unquote, that has managed to stick around over these last few years. And I do find it interesting how even though they've gotten a lot of things wrong, they're still sticking around. And I think the reason why they stick around is because when you look throughout their Twitter and such, they acknowledge when they get things wrong. Like, here it is, take a look at this. Like, you take a look at this list at what they said was going to happen and what actually happened, it's not very good, not even close to good. They speak as if they have a good insider knowledge, but that insider knowledge doesn't really do much for them. On the flip side though, it does seem like they actually think about what makes sense, what is logical, but there's actually some solid speculation, and occasionally they get things right, because they basically talk about things we talk about here on the channel sometimes. And I find this particular rumor we're talking about today to be very interesting, because this came out yesterday, a day after I put out my video about the March 2023 vacancy. Now, I'm not saying that they saw my video and they're like, oh, well, let's talk about March 2023, but they might have, because they basically took one of my ideas from that video. Of course, I'm not the only person that's thought of this idea, it's just kind of an interesting timing. I'm simply acknowledging it, probably a coincidence. But it caught my eye, is the main point here, that's why, because it's something I was talking about literally on Monday. So let's go over the rumor. It's hard to believe that Nintendo doesn't have any game ready for March. Considering it's the end of the fiscal year and they always put something to make the last push of sales, if it's a game, an announcement should come between this week and January 13th for the mandatory 3 months reveal. It continues on. Metroid Prime Remaster is a strong contender. The game is finished, and I heard about a special edition plus a new Switch model, which apparently was supposed to come this holiday. Metroid Prime Anniversary ends on March, when the game was released 20 years ago in Europe. Also worth mentioning, the Metroid Prime 4 is entering the final stage of its development, which means about an extra year of work, so there is a chance the game will release next fiscal year, ending on March 2024. First, let me say, that's a lot of stuff that they've heard about. They have a good read on the development of Metroid Prime 4, they have a good read on this Metroid Prime Remaster situation, that there was supposed to be some sort of new hardware edition coming out alongside of it for the anniversary, this current holiday we're experiencing right now. I'm definitely skeptical of this insider knowledge, but I do agree with some of the logic. I do agree that yes, it does make sense for Nintendo to have some sort of game for March. I do think that. I think there's still a chance that could happen, but it's becoming increasingly less and less likely because, well, we're approaching March rather quickly, and the last major Nintendo Direct was in September. We're probably not going to get another one until February, and that will be too late to announce anything that's of major significance for March release. Now, this whole 3-month reveal thing, I would have to take a closer look at the actual reveal to release Windows for Nintendo. We have seen some things announced and coming out not too long afterwards. The best example that comes to mind is Super Mario 3D All-Stars that literally came out 2 weeks after its official announcement. But that was just like a weird situation during the COVID year. That was a complete anomaly. Most of the time, there's gotta be at least a few months. But this idea of this Metroid Prime Remaster being a strong contender for a game to end the fiscal year, I do think makes a pretty good amount of sense, and for new hardware to come out around then, I also think makes a pretty good amount of sense. I really don't think Nintendo cares that much about the anniversary timing. I know that Jeff Grubb had a hard prediction that Metroid Prime would come out for this holiday, for the 20th anniversary here in the West. That did not happen. He thought very confidently it would, but it did not. So, there it is. I do take Jeff Grubb very seriously. He's a well-respected, well-known journalist throughout the industry. So, if he was saying that, I believe that there was actual information behind the scenes that meant something for that. And I'm going to assume that the game was simply pushed up, because that's probably what happens for a lot of games behind the scenes. That makes sense. So is it conceivable that a remaster that was planned for the holiday sometime in 2022 gets pushed up about 4 or so months for a release in March that currently is vacant, where we've always seen some sort of game come out every single year since the Switch era began? Yeah, I think that's conceivable, considering that it's a remaster, kind of like 3D All-Stars, where it's a game that we already know about. It's existed for many, many years. It's been long rumored and discussed, so people know what it is. People are expecting it. It is positioned for Nintendo to have a fairly quick turnaround on it. Now, I don't think it'll be a 2-week announcement to release window, but maybe a couple months. That is conceivable. Like, maybe it could be a Game Awards announcement tomorrow. I'm gonna say probably not, but you never know. Or maybe it could be like a shadow drop trailer, like, hey, look, Metroid Prime Remaster, it's coming out this March, enjoy, in January. Like, that's conceivable for me. Now, this idea of a special edition Switch, though, I could see maybe like an OLED Metroid Prime model. That would be super cool. I would totally go for that. But I doubt it would be like a Switch 2 or Switch Pro or something like that. Mainly because Tears of the Kingdom is coming out May 12th, and if Nintendo's going to use some sort of game to push new hardware, I feel like it makes more sense for it to be Zelda and not Metroid Prime. Now, it's also possible that maybe there's just basically like a Metroid OLED and then also a Zelda OLED in May, and this idea of a more powerful Switch won't be happening for a while, maybe not until holiday 2023 or beyond. So then maybe this could happen. But then another argument that could be made is that, yeah, maybe this rumor is true. Maybe there is a more powerful Switch coming out in March to close out the fiscal year alongside Metroid Prime. And because it's Metroid Prime and it's going to be a real looker, it's going to be vastly enhanced, it's going to be a great way to showcase the new abilities of a more powerful system. But because this system may not be like a straight up next generation system, potentially, I guess, then it's not going to be like having a lot of exclusives. It's going to be something more like, if you want your games to look and run a little bit better, you get this Switch, but the other Switches are still just fine. And if it's something that's positioned more like that, then Tears of the Kingdom can also take advantage of this in May, and maybe they just show off both games in a January event where they just kind of talk about this new system. Like, that's also possible, but really there's just kind of like a multitude of options here, and in my opinion, I think the idea of saving the game to come out by the end of the fiscal year to celebrate the anniversary of Metroid Prime, I'm just kind of skeptical on how much they really care about that anniversary timing, because we haven't seen anything mentioned for Metroid Prime yet. Now, you could argue maybe the reason they haven't mentioned it yet is because they're going to mention it before the end of the fiscal year. Ultimately, when it comes to this rumor, they're not declaring that it's gonna happen exactly then. They are simply speculating it's going to happen then because it makes sense, and I agree there's some sense to be made there, but they're coming at it from an angle as if they have some insider knowledge on it, on things about the situation, which I am very, very skeptical of. That all said, I'll say this rumor is somewhat believable. It's something that I myself have speculated because I do think it makes sense. I do think it's something that could happen, but it's also just one of a few different possibilities, so I'm not going to totally buy into it either. I do believe the Metroid Prime Remaster is real. I know a lot of people are not really buying into it now because Jeff Grubb was so confident it would happen this holiday, and it's not happening. But I think there's a good chance that just means the game was pushed up a bit. Maybe a bit to March, or maybe a bit beyond that. I don't know, but I do think we will see it eventually, and my bet is sometime in 2023. But what do you guys think? What do you make of this rumor? Is it believable? Is it bogus? Do you trust the leaker? I don't, but I'm curious what you guys think. So let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.